What is awesome, has always been awesome, and will forever be awesome. When you find out the chemo worked. That feeling when something you've been struggling to understand ticks over in your brain. The sudden, wonderful rush when the world becomes just a little bit bigger. Having someone you love tell you they're really proud of you. The first time you hold the hand of the person you like. Realizing you still have time. Good health. Clean drinking water. When you finish reading an amazing book, and as you close the cover you get that feeling of immense satisfaction tinged with a tiny bit of sadness that it ended. Edit. Shout out to /r/suggestmeabook/r/books for recommendation threads and sidebar info for people wanting a new read. A nice shower after a long day. A satisfying meal after fasting. A nice warmth feeling sitting in the sun on a cold winter day. A nice cool breeze sitting in a tree shade on a hot summer day. I think those would do me, simple things. Edit. Wow, wasn't expecting this. Thank you kind strangers for the awards. It is lovely to know people still believe in simple things. Be safe and well everyone. Clean sheets. Sleep. Night sky filled with stars. 3-day weekends. Taking a nap and waking up to see you've teleported to your bed. Although I'm not sure that happens too often after you get past a certain age. Having a relationship where both partners love and care about each other. Ex-Trump supporters, what point did you stop supporting Trump and why? I can't explain when, I can just explain the very slow gradient from all but wearing the red MAGA hat to going hold the fuck on. My initial decision to vote for him wasn't really as a conservative. Though I would align my ideals more with conservatism of the 1950s. I'm from Vermont, and I remember watching the DNC's response to the threat that was Trump, force Hillary Clinton down the nation's throats and the absolute rigged BS that was superdelegates. I liked things Bernie said, and while he's very left, the nature of politics would force him to the center. But to watch him win Wyoming, and he got something like 3 delegates and the lose, Hillary, got 11 because of soup delegates was so frustrating as a voter. So I voted for Trump and I got sucked into the just, asinine hype. I made excuses for the grab her by the pussy nightmare, the escorts, the accusations of rape and sexual assault. I was starting to make valid connections to how President Obama was not an American. Turns out, I'm an idiot, and at 30+ years old found out I too, had a certificate of live birth, and I'm also an American, and how we're all going to be good because haha, Trump and Putin are buddies so the world won't end. I think the first crack started when my friend Mariah, who has sunk into a very dark depression since Trump was voted out, he meant that much to her, started to act out towards people who even questioned the President of the United States. And even openly stated, as a veteran, that the Constitution should be rewritten so he could be president forever. I started to see how I was acting in her, and even more infuriating, is she's very good at acting like you, and then when you call her out on the BS, justifying why you're wrong to do it, and she's right. And then I started to get annoyed by the constant tweeting. The supposed leader of the free world has no time for 60 tweets a day. The cracks became a fissure during COVID. I worked for a hospital, and I served in my state's National Guard and was actively part of the response, out there, with the nurses and doctors. And I watched him do as much as he could to facilitate as little as possible, and dare I say stop hospitals from responding to the disaster, hold back supplies, bargain with states, and at one point, my state had to use state police to guard resources so federal personnel wouldn't come and take them at the government's direction. I was an American citizen, serving to support my fellow citizens, and the commander-in-chief, my boss, was actively making it all but impossible to help. And finally when I started to see who Republicans were who supported this man, I couldn't do it. Ted Cruz, Jim Jordan, MTG, Bo Ebert, DeSantis, and so on. I decided I could no longer look myself in the mirror if I supported such people as them, people who were religious extremists, sexual predators, and just the worst people that could possibly exist. I'm not proud that it took that much, or that it took an entire year, but in the end I'm just happy I escaped it. When he refused to condemn David Duke, ex-head of the KKK, and said that some veterans suffering from combat PTSD were not strong enough. I grew up in a very conservative fundamentalist Christian household that raised the American flag and right-winged politics higher than the Bible. I was taught in church that you can't be a Christian and a Democrat. I voted for Trump in 2016 not because I really liked him, but because I really didn't like Hillary Clinton, or so I was told to before I began to think about what I believed for myself. After that year, I was groomed by my brother, who at the time was an infamous figurehead in the alt-right/white supremacist community, damn near the right hand of Richard Spencer. I would listen to his Skype calls with Spencer from the other room because we had fairly thin walls where we lived. At one point, I was actually involved with the white supremacist hate organization that my brother founded, albeit tangentially I helped cut out flyers and posters that he would post throughout my town and the neighboring ones. In my defense, I knew little to nothing about his organization when I did this, not that that excuses the fact. I can't really tell you when I began thinking differently. I know at some point I realized that there was a lot of what I believed that I only believed because it's what I was always told growing up. Slowly, over the course of the last 6 years, I've gone from being a borderline Trump supporter to someone deeply ashamed of many things my family has taught me growing up. I'm closer of a centrist in the context of global politics, which to my family now means I'm what they could call a raging flaming liberal communist. I still hold my Christian beliefs quite closely, but I do like to think that they come from a place of love for other people, rather than making sure everything I do is correct and everyone else knows they're wrong. I don't know how a single person could support him after Puerto Rico. He said their natural disaster broke their budget, begrudgingly visited and tossed paper towels like basketballs, and mocked the pronunciation of the name. Oh yeah, and didn't give a shit that an entire territory was destroyed with thousands of dead Americans. Back in the 80s when he didn't ever pay his contractors. I've hated this prick for 40 years. Sharpagate. Why not just admit you were wrong and move on? Like that the fuck? That idiot took a fucking Sharpie and drew on a map to show he was right on where a hurricane was headed. So fucking stupid. I've never been a Republican, but my parents were at one point and my dad still is. We're very close and learned several years ago if we wanted to have a good relationship, we couldn't talk politics. I do know for a fact that he didn't vote for him in 2020. IDK what did it for him, but I do know he's a classic conservative and his opinion began to change when he realized Trump wasn't a Republican. He was just a power-hungry asshole. One of my best friends voted for Trump in 2016, but my other best friend and I just started talking to her logically and without judgment, and she slowly started to come around. Then COVID hit, and as a respiratory therapist at a children's hospital, she just had enough. I think people had one-on-one conversations with the people in their lives, and I know that spewing hate and shame at anyone who ever supported him is not helpful, and one-on-one conversations without judgment help. Thanks for your honesty in this question. I'm enjoying reading the answers. His was the first election I could vote in. I really felt my vote meant so much, so I studied everyone running. I didn't like the options, but the things he would say. Grab her by the puss. For one. If she wasn't his daughter, he'd date her. As a daughter of a horrible man, I didn't want more of that sexism in our nation, and I saw the men at his rallies, I saw them. Not to mention his racism and general message of hate and hypocrisy. My family was so anti-Hillary, so when it came out the night of the election that I'd voted for her, it became a screaming match. I showed them clips of him saying things, they said they won't have this language in their home, and I screamed, you just put it in the White House, then went to spend the night at a friend's. They now condemn him and act as if they were never behind him. I never was to begin with. He was fascinating on Letterman in the 1980s, openly sleazy and immoral, self-aggrandizing, a curiosity to watch, difficult to understand how he could be human. Then I realized he was a malignant narcissist running a confidence game, and the charm faded. I asked my mom and her answer was not necessarily January 6th, but when he tried to deny he enticed January 6th. She has come a long way and now realizes she was close to becoming a QAnon lunatic. But now she sees he was a con man. I asked what drew her to him, and she said her disgust with Hillary Clinton drove her away from the Democratic Party and basically into the arms of Trump. Now she's mostly disinterested in politics. For my mom, it was when she was exposed to news sources outside of Fox when she was hospitalized for something, not COVID, and the staff said they didn't get Fox, which had compelling enough arguments that the election was stolen narrative was false. Not me, but my aunt/uncle. COVID did it. They were both MAGA hat-wearing supporters until COVID. My aunt is a retired nurse and was horrified by Trump's lack of leadership. Edit, they did not vote for him a second time. I'm from a small town and my dad is a gun-toting Republican. I am very close to my dad and wanted to be just like him in every way possible. I remember when Obama was elected, I was 12 or 13, I cried and I honestly have no idea why. I think I cried because the outcome wasn't what my dad wanted. But I did not know the first thing about politics. When I left for college I became surrounded by people from all walks of life, ethnicities, genders, sexual orientation, religions, etc., and I grew to love these people and realized how much hatred was being spewed at them from the right. Fast forward 8 years and I joined the military, and because friends with a Hispanic girl whose mom was not able to attend her graduation because she had been deported, while pregnant, trying to go home to visit her sick mother. Her father was here on a visa and her brother was a dreamer. However, because mom was deported, she gave birth to her youngest in Mexico and therefore he did not qualify for the Dreamers Act like she and her other sibling did. The whole motivation for her to join the military was so she could transfer citizenship to her mother, but can no longer do that because of the deportation. Father is legal here as he is on a work visa. She was one of the most hardworking, kindest people I've ever met, and her family were wonderful, hardworking people too. I witnessed firsthand how the right with Republicans treat foreigners and I am disgusted. I also don't believe that any one religion should be dictating this country. That debate where Trump couldn't STFU was one of the alarm bells. I liked how Obama said it recently on 60 Minutes. I thought and hoped that the weight of the office would dawn on him and make him take things seriously. Unfortunately that did not happen. What's something most people think is healthy today that future people will shake their heads at? The hustle culture. Not everything you do needs to make money. You should be able to have hobbies that stay just that, hobbies. Lack of access/time in nature. Social media. I'm being super hypocritical, but we're gonna look back on social media today the same way our parents looked back on the time they smoked and said, yeah, everybody smoked back then, it really wasn't a big deal. Yeah, we knew it wasn't good for you, but we still did it anyway. No, we didn't think of it as some sort of addiction, we just did it because that's what people did back then. I already believe that the majority of fitness influencers would benefit from counseling rather than advising followers on Instagram, so that's undoubtedly the case. Constant notifications and other distractions. Edit, and yes, I appreciate the irony of people responding to this has resulted in a deluge of notifications for me. From a doctor's perspective, half of the US health food industry is absolute garbage. 1. Supplements. What's in them? They aren't regulated, so anything could be. Many studies have found a lack of actual advertised product at best, harmless fillers such as sawdust commonly, and heavy metal and other toxin contamination such as lead and arsenic at worst. All for the cheap price of $$ and your health. Is it possible that some could be helpful for specific things? Yup. But are most things on the shelf going to fit in that category? Absolutely not, no. 2. Most diet plans/snacks/products. Low in fat but high in sugar? Serving size of 1/4 of what is sold? Contains some mysterious fruit scientifically shown to combat the laws of physics? A laxative in disguise? Most of these plans are just like get-rich-quick schemes. They are sold to provide a quick path to a healthier and better life. But diet isn't a quick fix. It's a slow combination of everyday habits. Diet culture is a toxic scam and their advertisements are sickening both for the lies commonly told and the mental health toll on the targeted audience. Hell, most of the good choice food items at the grocery could be considered unhealthy processed garbage. 3. Fruit juice. Despite what Steve Jobs believed, fruit juices are pure sugar in a glass. Calories with limited nutrient content and a high glycemic load. 4. The way we teach physical activity. We use sports as a competition and filter kids out, only supporting the best of the best financially and through school programs. But the reality is that team and club sports can keep people active and engaged in their communities for life. This is healthy. If we can foster low-level skill sports for everyone, we will have healthier and happier communities. Except for maybe American football. That shit will give you brain injuries. Edit, that pre-workout your friend swears by? It's probably caffeine and some protein powder. Some of them may contain amphetamine analogs and other stimulants. The special formulations and vitamins they say they have, if actually present, are usually ineffective amounts or mischaracterizations of studies anyway. Drink an Americano and eat a diet full of vegetables, nuts, and beans, and you will be good to go. Slimming drinks and supplements. The amount of our lives we share with strangers online thinking we're anonymous. The notion that natural automatically means healthier. All those word trending diets. Storing food and drinks in plastic. It's not that people find it healthy, but I think that screen time today is definitely much more dangerous during our lifetime than we already think it is. Low-fat products which predominantly were filled with high fructose corn syrup, high sugar diets, and other things that lead to metabolic syndrome, partially hydrogenated oils. Some have recognized the dangers in this already, but in 40 years maybe we'll see people look back and go, they made all of this money at the expense of ordinary citizens' health. Cooking things in plastic, eating and drinking things out of plastic. 40-hour work week with generally unfulfilling jobs. Source: I'm a clinical psychologist. Edit: wasn't expecting this much attention. For the record, I don't think my own job is unfulfilling. However, my current salary is not competitive and I have to work 2 side jobs to support my family. Psychologists probably don't make as much as you think.